All right, howdy everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can y'all hear us okay? Is everybody caffeinated and motivated? All right, you are, I can tell. Want to kick off?
Yeah, well, good morning, everybody. It's so wonderful to be here. My name is Professor Dana Redford, and I am working with the European Union in this initiative that I'm going to speak with you this morning. I am also a senior fellow at the Institute of European Studies at UC Berkeley, and I have my own NGO for development called the Policy Experimentation Evaluation Platform in Lisbon, Portugal, where I live.
And howdy y'all, I'm Elizabeth Gore. I'm the founder of Hello Alice. So we're a financial technology, thank you. I needed that this morning, thank you. We're a financial technology, we fund Main Street. So we've provided loans, grants, credit to over 1.5 million small businesses in the United States, focusing on letting everyone pursue their American dream. I'm a proud board member of the Global Entrepreneur Network, and then relevant today, I've failed a lot. And so I think this is a great topic, especially over the last 24 months in the United States, where small businesses have been through COVID. 2/3 of counties have had natural disasters, which has really caused a collapse, and now we're looking at extreme cost of goods sold and tariffs. So I think this is a really, really critical topic that Professor has brought to us today.
Well, thank you. We're going to start just to frame this. So each ecosystem has its own type of characteristics, and in Europe, we work a lot with European directives, where the European Commission and Parliament come down with aspects that need to be in conformity through all of the 28 member states. And so there was this directive, this EU directive in 2019 that looked to help to move the perspective from bankruptcy to early warning. So this is to say that we have a lot of things that work on insolvency, where we're looking at helping people restructure and also after they have failed. Well, the perspective now is to try to help people as they're in that process of distress, and to help them get out of that distress, to help them find their way through those problems. And in that regard, we look to have this preventative restructuring. And the real direction here, the detection aspect here, is that we want to help with either algorithms that help to understand when their financials are not well, or other aspects that look at sort of auditing their company, and really have an alert when there's a problem. So this is something where it's very helpful to have that, and that purpose is really to help entrepreneurs, and then we then have the other aspect of early warning, which is information, where we're trying to get them information about what are the services that are out there, how do you go through these procedures, and then it's about assistance. And this is where this EU project that I was a part of, I was the lead educator on, which was called the Early Warning Europe Mentor Academy, because a lot of things about helping entrepreneurs through these times of distress is really to get mentors and coaches to help them. And I'll describe that a little bit after, but please.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask everybody, how many of you have ever failed at anything? It could be personal, professional, it could be this morning, right? And do any of you have someone that you call in your life when something is going wrong? Okay, some of you don't. I feel really sorry for you. You find someone to call. So to me, the reason I got so attracted to this concept is if especially small, medium businesses, your board of directors is one thing, very critical, but sometimes it's intimidating to talk to them. And I think the ability to call a neutral party to get through this is really critical. And I'm curious, have you all been on the other side of that phone call? How many of you all received a phone call of someone that was failing, right? And generally, is that advice rocket science, or are you really just listening and processing information? Can someone just tell me? Someone raise your hand. So when someone's asking you to help me get through this, do you have the answer, or are you just helping them process the information? Can we give her a mic? We're going to make this super interactive this morning. So, and introduce yourself so we can get to know you.
Good morning. My name is Candace Branch. I'm the owner of Excel Employment Services. I own an employment agency based in Dallas, Texas.
Woo!
Texas. Yes, when I help them talk through things, talk through solutions, or sometimes just listen, just based on my wisdom of what they need in that moment, and just kind of go from there based on my previous failures and what helped me to navigate it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. And I'm just curious that I'm going to keep jumping in and asking you questions. Is that based on this as well? Because I could see people being like, "Oh, what are the qualifications of the folks that are calling, and how does that work?" I mean, what are generally the reasons folks are contacting a service like this?
Yeah, so they many times are being able to be identified through accountants that they work with, or consultants that they work with, or even economic development offices that are local. And so early warning mentors come from all different types of organizations. Of course, in Europe, we have a lot of organizations that are publicly sponsored, that are regionally focused, similar to here in the US and other countries. But it can also be a private foundation or some sort of other entity that is looking at that area and helping entrepreneurs. And I think, so much we focus on the startup aspect, but if we look at entrepreneurship, it's a cycle, right? I mean, this is something that if you fail as an individual, that doesn't mean, or you fail in your project or in your company, that doesn't mean you are a failure, right? We know that entrepreneurs and serial entrepreneurs have had all of these times where they've gone through tough times, and the question is not if you're going to go through those tough times and if you're going to fail, it's going to be what are you going to do when you do fail.
Right. So my co-founder, Carolyn Rods, her first business went bankrupt. Her second business was a big success, and she exited. That's when we met and started Hello Alice. And she's very clear that she learned more from the first one. So she said it was more costly than an MBA. But we want folks to go through that. Let me ask you a quick, very US-centric question, if I may. Sure. I know we're a global audience, but we're in an environment in the US right now where things are getting cut. So if this is government supported, is this actually going to save the public money? I know it is, so it's a loaded question. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it takes a lot of money to help startups. It takes a lot of money to, and it's risky to help those startups. So we know from the success rates that you probably have a 20% drop off after the first year, but after 5 years, we're talking about almost a 65, 70%, 80% drop off. So the question is, if you can keep a company viable, and we'll talk a little bit more about what is early warning and what are some of the results of these types of things. But if you think about that small investment, you're keeping those 12 people, those 24 people, those 3 people employed, and maybe you have to cut 1 or 2 or 5. But you're going to keep something viable, and that's important for the local community, that's important for the entrepreneurs and their families themselves. So this is really, a key aspect that we need to think of it really holistically. And I'm a big advocate of looking at entrepreneurship holistically. It's not just about entrepreneurs, also it's about large companies and how they integrate and how they complement. And so I think that's the holistic view.
Well, in the vast majority of countries, I think you all know, small and medium businesses are the top employers in those countries. So that's how critical this is. Exactly. So let's talk about the thing none of us want to talk about, but it's important. When a business does need to close. I was telling you earlier, y'all, I was so surprised. We ran the COVID-19 Business Center, the digital center during COVID, and one of the two actually most important things that we were surprised by was we had a mental health center, which we'd never done on Hello Alice. And that was in the top 3 reasons businesses were closing was people's mental health at the time. And then the second most used thing was how do you declare bankruptcy? And that was so important because these business owners needed to close effectively, to not ruin their credit, to be able to open another business later, and then to, frankly, not spend down their life savings. So tell me about that piece, because again, defining failure is different, but I think that's a really important part of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much about our lives, we sort of define who we are by, the first thing if I ask, who are you? You're going to tell me about your company and your background, and this is something that's so ingrained into our own personal identities. So it's really hard to sometimes detach ourselves from that key aspect of us and our identities. And so I think that although Early Warning Europe and Early Warning mentors are not psychologists, they can be, but that's not their primary focus. There are that aspect where you're dealing with the individual. You're not,
right,
it's not just the company and sort of the hard figures.
Well, and let me ask everybody: have you ever felt isolated as a founder? Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's very isolating, and not even needing to be a psychologist, just actually having a conversation with someone, right? But go ahead, get me to bankruptcy.
Yeah, so...
Not really, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I can describe the process a little bit. I mean, we go through and first there's a sort of that initial discussion with the entrepreneur. And by the way, these are services that are normally not charged for. So this can be like here in the United States, we have an organization called SCORE, which is for retired executives, and so these people are volunteering their time. So many times it can be a very experienced entrepreneur or business person, and this is important because they have those experiences and can relate that to the entrepreneur. So the first thing is, there should be also that there's no pressure in terms of the money, because that's, one of the things that's a problem. So then we go through and do an assessment of the books, looking at some of the issues in the market. Many times there's a question of market fit. The market has moved, but the company is not. We can think of N examples about that. And then try to make an assessment, like what would need to happen to keep this going. Is it the right time to say, okay, the market has shifted, or this is just, you can see from the financials that this is not going to work. It's time for you to cut your losses and then move on and think about how you can get into either a second chance program, which can be a variety of programs that are trying to help entrepreneurs get into a new area of business, or get into unemployment, whatever that would be. Obviously in Europe there's more of a social safety net.
Right.
But yeah.
So I'm curious, would you all use this? Raise your hand if you think you would at any time would use this system. Okay. So and on the other side, if you are on the investor side or the global, if you are on the, let's say, network side, would you encourage your business owners to use it? Yeah. Okay, I see a lot of hands up. So tell us about the opportunity to bring this to other countries.
Yeah, so I have a couple slides on this. I'll just share. So I mean, we're really trying to ensure that there's the necessary changes are made, and then we want to contribute to those changes and to look at that and to help business manage those difficult times. So that's the sort of purpose of early warning. But then we have different steps. So as I was saying, the first aspect is a sort of outreach step, because many times you need to find those entrepreneurs that are having those problems, and you need to be actively helping them to figure out what's going on. And then, of course, you have that initial contact and diagnosis. The initial diagnosis is something that's really key. It's usually sitting down, looking at the books, looking at what the market is, and then we're starting with the mentoring aspect, and the mentoring of viable companies is important. It can be psychological, but it can also be, really looking at new tools. So, many times we have these tools that help in terms of going through a market assessment, looking at other aspects that might be needed in terms of changing the workforce, the components of who's working. And then I also have to say that, again, we have these aspects. There's two possibilities, right? We either help to recover that company, or there's that more quick closure. And again, I think we need to think broadly about this, that is not a failure. That can be a success, because that can help the person come back from this really difficult moment. And the faster we can get someone back on their feet, that's a real success. But there's lots of times where that you can smell alcohol in the breath of the person who's coming in, and they're going through these tough moments. It's also to try to be.
Now,
human.
I drink tequila when I'm having a really hard time, so I'm worried about that. But anyways, hey, really quickly, I'm always surprised by the fundamental lack of understanding of cash flow with business owners.
Yeah.
And that's no fault of theirs. Usually they're very good at their trade, their craft, or whatever that is. And are you all using assessment tools around their fiscal health, their cash flow? I mean, I'm always shocked by it's not easy fixes, but sometimes just really digging in and understanding cash trajectory. I'm just curious about that.
No, exactly, Elizabeth. That's I think one of the main things is actually that cash flow assessment. That's one of those things that seems to be sort of an easy thing, some sort of almost no-brainer, but it really trips up lots of people. And so going through those sort of simple exercises, and also when someone's objective, right? Someone who's not involved in the company, someone who comes in as an outsider perspective, this is something that can really help the entrepreneur in moving through those difficult times, and having that more objective view.
I'm just curious for y'all again. So those of you on the ecosystem side, can you raise your hand? Okay. Oh, mostly in here. Okay. So let me ask, raise your hand, we'll bring a mic. What would it take for you to utilize the system for your business owners? I'm just curious. Can anybody raise a hand and tell me that? Yes, ma'am. Can we bring a microphone right up here? Can you raise your hand, ma'am, so he can see you? Yeah. And introduce yourself so we know who you are.
Morning.
Morning.
My name is Natalie Moyo. I'm from the African Leadership Academy in South Africa.
Pull your mic up real close. There you go.
I'm from the African Leadership Academy in South Africa, and we work with very young entrepreneurs across the continent. And we're actually already taking entrepreneurs or the entrepreneurs through a similar process, because we have coaches who we call venture partners that actually walk this journey with them. They're mentors, they're thought partners, they're problem solvers, and they help them go through all of these discovery phases in their business with them. So this is something that we're already doing and would love to do more of, and understand different strategies that we can include. One of which is, how do we actually convince these entrepreneurs, if their model is not working well, that, okay, you are fine, you can close your business, but you can still bounce back from this, because this is their baby, this is their passion, right? And they're still holding on, they still have hope, but they need to come to that mental place where they understand that their business is not really viable, but they are able to bounce back from that.
Yeah, this is one of those big challenges. That's a great.
Well, I love
comment.
when people tell me what to do. What? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, we've had some success. I'll just share a little bit about the network. 15 countries that we have. We have over 1,200 early warning mentors. And so the question here, we have a dialogue, obviously, with the government, and in this case, the European Commission. I think it's always important, because this is a really key sort of public policy aspect. Because if you think about, again, public money going into entrepreneurship. If you can save a company, that's a much smaller investment. And I have some numbers from the Danish organization about, how if you think about how much money goes into helping develop a startup, and how many companies could be helped to stay afloat. You're talking multiples here, and so as you can see, we're all across Europe here, and the focus is really about peer learning. So what works in one country or one region is different than another, but we try to help on that. And also we have a knowledge center, we have tools. I'm going to share with you not only a learning program, so if you are interested or your colleagues are interested in your organization to be an early warning mentor, you have the course that I've developed that is free of charge on the EU Academy, and I can share also, there's a bunch of tools on the site that we use for early warning mentoring, and then I'm also going to share with you a report that you can download about good practices from across the world, which is what we benchmarked our work on. Yeah, in terms of early warning, you can see that we've already started going beyond Europe here, working in Mexico and also in Moldova, and having some discussions with the OECD and World Bank. So these sorts of things are going global. Would love to see, I work a lot in Africa. I work a lot in Portuguese-speaking Africa. I've worked on high-impact entrepreneurship in Africa and on savings groups, Stokvels, as you know, in South Africa. So I'm interested in how this would also convert to other regions. But here in the European context, again, we've worked with 15,000 SMEs across Europe just in the year of 2024. And if you think about, let's say a 200,000 euro grant, how many organizations can you save? So that's just for one startup grant, let's say for a technology startup. That could be 130 SMEs saved.
Right.
Or, at least that have gone through this process, maybe not necessarily saved, but also that they've had a clean cut and that they've been able to recover. So, these are some of the, let's say, evidence and results so far that we have, and really trying to save the treasury and the community. So
should we move into some of those? I know you want to workshop us a little bit on how we think about this.
Sure, I'm already workshopping it.
Let's go.
Yeah. So the thing is that this also. You mentioned COVID.
Yeah.
This came also before COVID, because this
Y'all
started
remember we had a pandemic? Does anybody remember that? So is anyone else teaching kids at home? Lord kill me.
Oof, my God.
Oof.
Yeah, a 3-year-old. There's no teaching a 3-year-old online. Yeah. So if we look at this, it really helped through the crisis, and if we look at sort of the legal status here of either companies survive in the same legal context, or they go into sort of more of a hybrid or let's say hobby state, which can be also, then it comes into freelance work. It can also be, 16% of the companies closed and were helped to carry on in some level of operation in a new legal entity, because there's also that, how do we take what is working and put it into another entity that will work? Sorry,
really, I want to pause on that.
Sure.
So it used to drive me crazy. So we're Series C backed at this point at Hello Alice Venture Capital, and it used to drive me nuts when we were Series A and B of, are you a first time, have you founded another company? I had not, my co-founder had. And I always thought that was such a, why would you want someone who failed something first? And that was absolutely my ignorance. Now, the best founders we see are ones who closed during COVID. Right. 100%. They are so resilient. They are more, I think, cautious about their cash flow. They understand cash flow. They are resilient. They are spending more effectively on software. And so, but I remember 10 years ago that driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And now it's almost like when I'm hiring, I love hiring folks who've been in the military or the Peace Corps or some kind of service, or they were athletes, where they've really had to get through something on the other side. And I love the fact that you are transitioning, not just ending folks, and seeing, basically that cycle of the economy. I just think it's fabulous.
Yeah, that in the Silicon Valley, sort of the fast, failure. Let's and many times in our American context, and I sort of straddle, both Europe and the U.S., but also Africa. I mean, the idea here is that if we are going to fail, if we can fail quickly and move on and learn from that actually is a good investment.
Right.
But not in everywhere. I mean, I would say and sometimes I am asked, what are the differences between European entrepreneurs and American entrepreneurs? I mean, I think that Europe, if you ask any sort of American entrepreneur, the 22-year-old, she's already thinking about how she's going to sell the company, move on, do the next gig, and have the exit. Whereas I would say in Europe, it's really much more about like, I'm an empresario, or I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, and it's more of like almost a lifestyle choice. So we actually have some problems in Europe in terms of scaling, big time.
That's interesting.
And
okay, I didn't know that.
and so these are some of the things that I think are challenges. And if you are in that culture, in that cultural space where you are, this entrepreneur, you are this business owner, then to leave that identity is so difficult. So I think that these are the sort of things where I talk a lot about failure. I have my when I give my master's and PhD programs, I have my students jumping up screaming, "Yes, I failed," because I want them to sort of culturally reprogram. While we're talking about different difficult things. I have some exercises and things about how to get people through failure and how to reframe it. So again, it's having that positive perspective and to think that this is part of your journey.
Yeah, and it is interesting when we talk to founders now. I used to talk about here are the high points you're going to hit. Now I say, if you're successful, here are the 5 things that will happen to you.
Yeah.
And we talk about you're going to get sued, you're going to have to fire an employee. You're going to have a health issue that if you're of a certain age that takes you away from the business for a while.
Right.
You're going to have an economic collapse. So anyways, and that's just knowing those things are coming. We had a year where Silicon Valley Bank was our second largest investor. They collapsed overnight. We had a federal lawsuit for reverse discrimination. And then we had a heart issue in our leadership team. And that was in 12 months, right? And so it just changed my mindset for folks to think about that. So what I just want to get back to, though, is folks in the audience really want to pull this to their environment. Let's talk through that.
Yeah, so
I'm sorry, we have a quick question here. Yes, sir.
I apologize.
Not at all.
What is your business?
Good morning. Joe McMurray with Purdue University. I am curious what your business model is in order to adapt, right, or to adopt, I should say, this kind of system in the U.S. I can at least tell you from our point of view, it's what's the business model for sustainability, right? So if you could explain that, greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, that is a great question. I mean, it sort of is a bit of a, sort of a strange thing to think that the way in which this works, again, you're having free services, so that's why it's many times embedded into a public entity, many times using people who are retired or semi-retired that have something also to say in this area. So there is a certain amount of money that needs to be generated to keep the sort of structure, but many times we have those structures in the ecosystem organizations and the entrepreneurship support organizations that we're a part of. And it's just about questioning where are we going to put our focus, and if we can show return on investment, and I think this is you can show return on investment in terms of economic development and keeping money in the community and people afloat. So I think that the question is really about...
So it doesn't have to sit in a government entity? It could be in a nonprofit, university?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's again how you would have the framework to support it, but I think if you can show those results, there's money out there and there's money in your organization that you can perhaps divert to it. it's not a money-making operation in and of itself, but again, a lot of startup assistance is not money-making. I mean, and so yeah, that's generally how it's looked at. Yeah.
One more question. Do you mind if we answer a few questions?
Not at
and
all.
we'll
Not at
jump
all.
into this.
Please.
Yeah.
Patrick Donahue, I'm an investor, Hill Capital, also started a few businesses. I was curious when I read the description of this in hearing about crisis, and then Elizabeth, you mentioned with Hello Alice, I think number 1 or 2 needed resource was around mental health. And I was wondering if there's any part of this, and maybe it's under the mentoring, that's tied into mental health, because I've been on the front line several times. The money stuff is easy relative, and the legal stuff is easy relative to somebody calling up ready to take their life, because as an entrepreneur, their whole life is embedded into everything they've built, and it's their baby. So I was kind of curious, I was hoping we could have some conversation around this, if there's tie-ins to mental health and how to help with on the front lines, because it's a huge issue. I'm a member of Entrepreneurs Organization. We've talked about it, but even organizations like that don't have something like on the front lines of this when members are in crisis. So even some of our CEO roundtable types of groups, they're stuck. They don't know what to do. So I was hoping to find some of those resources here at the conference.
Yeah, that's a great comment and observation, and so very true. It is all about the person. I mean, you're really working with these founders. Early morning mentors are more on the business side, but it's also, they're the first sort of alert, right? So if someone is perhaps suicidal or is going through some difficult times, then you have other services that are around that. And it depends, of course, on the context. Here in the US, it might be different. It might be through a not-for-profit. It might be through some sort of volunteer program in terms of psychologists or psychiatrists that might be able to help. In Europe, we have a bit more of a social safety net, so you can get them into public services that might be able to help them on this. And but you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, we're working with the person. We're not working with the company, in some sort of magical way. But having someone there for you, as Elizabeth pointed out, like first question, how many of you go to someone when you are in crisis? That's the first, I think, eye-opening experience is I'm not going through this alone. I'm there, and someone else can be there to help me. So Early Warning Europe, in the mentoring program, we're working more on business skills, but we do touch in the learning program about mental health, mental wellness, and how to address those issues. But it's a great point, and I'll share with you the learning program, which has some of those key aspects.
We have a question right here.
Good morning. My name is Sebastian Zarate. I'm part of the Ironworks Corporation. It is a nonprofit organization that helps young entrepreneurs like myself. And my question to you is, you come from a strong European country, Portugal. What would you say something we could adapt from the European mindset of the young entrepreneur that Americans could take from them, and vice versa? What can Europeans do that could take from the American entrepreneur mindset? What's something where we could adapt so we could grow and build more?
Yeah, that's a interesting question, and this is my study from comparative studies between the U.S. and Europe. Like I say, I think that the American entrepreneur is always looking for that exit, whereas the European entrepreneur is probably not. In terms of young people, I think the question of fear of failure, this context, I think we're a little bit more here in the United States, a little bit more open to failure than in the European context and in other contexts. So, working on that aspect, helping their cultural, embeddedness of these things. I think in terms of Europe, because Europe feels like it's playing catch up to this entrepreneurial spirit that we have that's so ingrained in the American culture, there are a lot more mechanisms and a lot more, let's say, pre-thought given to and programs developed for helping people. So that's something I think that's quite important. But I do have some recommendations in terms of what would be the recommendations for ecosystem builders in this regard, and that is again that full cycle aspect, helping this sort of rapid early warning systems. these mentor exchanges. Again, it's a lot about peer learning. So I think in the U.S., although we have this, part of our culture is about groups and working together in support groups. I think that there could be more in peer learning, and I think there's more of that openness in Europe because, again, you have so many different small countries that are coming together and trying to unite under the sort of European Union banner. So there's a lot more exchange, and it's so nice to see here in this context here in Indiana how we have so many different countries, counties and states that are coming together, not just countries, that are sharing good practices. So I think I've been interested in learning from what's going on in Kansas versus here and out in California, all sorts of different things. So.
Yeah, and I to your question, I think these types of conferences, these types of exchanges and learnings are really important. And then I also think there's the high growth and then the Main Street mindset.
Yes.
That could learn a lot from each other, particularly around mental health, going all the way back to what's a lifestyle business versus an exit business.
Yes.
So I like your question. Before we move into other tools, let's answer 2 more questions. Is that okay?
Yes, for sure.
So we'll start. Your hands have been over here in the very back. Thank you. And then we'll move into
for sure.
Yeah.
Hi there, Christina Richardson, Associate Professor at University College London and also founder of Foundology as an ex-founder myself. I was really interested in you talking about peer support. So last year we did research on founder resilience, so I noticed your resilience training there. But what we've created at Foundology is group coaching. So it's interesting hearing about EO and how the peer groups are not always able to deal with that sort of the lower level or the psychological level. I'm really interested to know how you see the modular resilience training interacting with peer support going forwards.
Great question. So you need a process, right? So even if you're going to be involved in peer learning, you need to have a framework on how that peer learning is going. You need that to be facilitated. And so that is what I think the Early Warning Europe Mentor Academy, for example, what we tried to do is give a process on how you can most efficiently and effectively work on peer learning. So we need that to be around topics. That needs to be, helping people in that. And so, in terms of this practical tool that we have, it's free for everybody. I have a QR code here at the end, but just to show you, this is a free online tool by the European Commission, able to be accessed anywhere. You do have to sign up in terms of a login. But this is the learning program that we developed, and I'm the lead educator, but it was a big group of people from like 7-8 countries that developed this program, and so you can go on this EU Academy. We have different modules. Here are the modules, so looking at mentoring and engagement, problem solving, change management, future planning, and resilience, and ready to mentor. And this is how we've organized the 4 modules. And then you have also these different aspects of learning reflection. So there, your question of how do we do the peer learning, using a lot of learning reflection type tools, and we also give other tools, either Excel based or questionnaire based. So if you're interested in this program, you can just go to this QR code here or take a picture of this site. But again, this is free to develop, and this was I think an 800,000 euro project over 3 years, and so this is for everybody's
it's amazing
benefit.
Curriculum.
Yeah.
We had two questions over here. One in the middle, and go ahead, and then I'll come to you. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Juscelina. I am the Gen Ambassador for Mozambique. I'm also a founder and ecosystem support organization. And my question is, how can we implement this type of solutions in scenarios as Mozambique is an African Portuguese-speaking country, so I'm sure you know well, where there's no culture of disclosure of information and data. So information like cash flow, fiscal information, most SMEs are not easily open to share that information, even with ESO or even with the government. We're never really sure if the information that we have is true. So until the company actually goes into bankruptcy, and obviously a lot of them also don't know how to file for bankruptcy, but we can see that the company is dying, but not with data. How do we move forward in making them understand that this type of tools or programs could help them recover or eventually close faster? Thank you.
Em primeiro lugar, muito bem-vinda. Eu gosto muito de Moçambique, acho que é um país espetacular, muito interessante em África, tem um potencial enorme. I think that these questions of the African context, again, we come with these cultural issues. I actually was just working in Mozambique with fish farms for the UN. And looking at how they work, and I put in a UN organization, we had the inspectors and the entrepreneurs putting them together, trying to figure out what are the issues that are in between, and how can we break through those trust issues. So I think in Africa, Africa's enormous, so you can't make generalizations. But I mean, if I look at Mozambique, I mean, there are those trust issues. You've been going through this terrible turmoil with the presidency, and that being contested, and how you work through that when someone has their cousin who, was killed, in violence on the streets. These are really difficult questions, but I'd love to speak with you more about Mozambique, and nice to meet you.
One thing I'll just say, this is I was over a decade with the UN and the Peace Corps, and the power of peers. Somebody I love the model of 6 months plus one. So if I talk to a founder who's 6 months ahead of me, and they just did a fundraise, or they just went through bankruptcy, or I don't know, that there seems to be a level of trust there versus someone I've never met, or maybe they're not in my industry. And so I think the peer element can be helpful sometimes. So I just flag that. The young lady with the white shirt, she's been waiting a long time.
And also, I'll just put up this slide as well, which is a good practice report. This has things from everywhere from New Zealand to Africa to Europe. So you can look at this QR code here or the site here, and you'll get to our good practice report, which has things from all different countries about how people are dealing with this. Please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Amelia Pieterneller, and I'm the Gen Manager from Bonaire.
From where?
From where, I'm sorry?
Bonaire.
Bonaire. Oh.
Bonaire, the ABC Islands.
Okay.
Great
Yes,
place.
yes. Okay, so before COVID, as someone that teaches entrepreneurship, we used to tell young entrepreneurs, people with small businesses, you need about 6 months in cash flow. What do you tell them now that the climate policy and different political arenas are changing? So what's wise? Because for the Caribbean, things move up and down very easily. So how do you navigate through that with small businesses?
Can I take that first?
Yes, please do.
This is my day job. So I don't know if you noticed, the U.S. is going through a bit of a turmoil right now. And I will tell you, for the first time, one of the things that I tell all of our small businesses, you have to pay attention to policy. And that, I know that sounds flippant, but that really hasn't been the case. Policy took forever. And so if there was a tax change or so on, and now with the tariffs that we're going through here, that's affecting everyone, all of you, this sounds really simple, but going through and almost doing things like Google alerts on my industry, my location, and then anything that you think would affect your business so that you're keeping up on those on a day-to-day. It's the first time, I think, that in our country, small business owners' P&L could be affected within 4 weeks of a policy change. And so what we're trying to do is, we can't tell you what that change is necessarily, but we can help them navigate keeping up with it, even though they're so time poor already. And so in your country, whatever those tools are to help them keep up to date on what those policy changes are, It's just so critical right now, and it's almost part of doing business, which really was not the case prior for us. So I just wanted to share that before you.
I think that's a fantastic answer. I think that's really where it's at. 6 months is sort of one of those ideals. I think if I look at the context in Africa that I work in, no one has 6 months of working capital. If you have 6 weeks of working capital, you're probably in good shape.
We're already getting the hook. I can't even believe that.
Yeah.
So I want to be sure though that you're able to close with the resources that everybody.
No, I think I've already showed them.
Okay.
I do hope that if you do get the chance to take the course, or give this to other people that you're working with. Also look at some of the good practices that we've been researching, and it took us years to research what is going on currently. This project just ended. The European directive, I think in public policy sense, is very inspired. Moving from, again, bankruptcy to early warning and to second chances. And this is, I think, good public policy and good work in terms of what we can do to help entrepreneurs, and in remembering that it's a part of a full cycle.
And if folks have questions for you,
yes,
how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so it's I don't know if I have my no, I didn't leave my email here, but it's Dana Redford, and then it's at peep.pt. So
you better spell that.
Yeah, so Dana, DANA.Redford at peep.pt. So you can see Peep Portugal. There's my name. So Dana.Redford at peep.pt.
Great.
So, yeah.
And y'all can get a hold of me anytime at Elizabeth Gore USA on any DMs. And can we thank the professor for this great information? Thank you.
Thank you.